In this video, we take a detailed look at 1980s Stannah Piccolo! Yes, it's actually called Piccolo. I only found it out when I went in the motorroom and saw it listed on the Logic. What a weird name. So, this is a classic 80s Stannah lift, and it was this model of lift where Stannah really took off. Because Stannah existed years back. In 50s, 60s, 70s, Stannah were pretty much unheard of, and they installed little relay lifts, and I actually don't know if any of these lifts still survive. I think they might all have gone now. But into the 80s, Stannah took off and installed loads of lifts, and well, quite a few still survive to modern day. So these were not bad quality, these were actually reasonable good lifts. But with that said, compared to the lift industry in the 60s and 70s with the really well built express lifts and how amazing they were, the 80s was a really bad decade and was the downward spiral of quality, where quality got really poorer and poorer with each decade. And in the 80s it's not as bad as later eras of lifts, but it really was that era where the quality went massively downhill. Like, this lift isn't really built to the quality of the 60s and 70s, but I'd say it's still built reasonably well since it still exists in the modern day, like it has lasted a long time. Let's start this video off by taking a ride in it. Now, let's surf it. We take a look on top. This is a hydraulic lift. It's not badly built, but it's not built to the quality of the 60s or 70s. So you can see here it's the 80s, the quality was going downhill, but it's still a good lift and has lasted a reasonably long time, since this lift was built in 1989. Let's now surf it at full speed. No, Stannah still used string back in the 80s. Fuck. Yeah. And into the motor room. And this lift has a rather odd logic. Now, this was the early days of the solid state electronics in lifts. Electronics in lifts pretty much started in the 80s, and this logic feels like they haven't really got to grips with the new technology at this point. The logic has a PLC look and feel to it, and it's also got a lot of relays. It's got a main contactors at the bottom, then it has a row of loads of relays. Then on the circuit board part of the logic there's also loads of relays. There's so many relays you could actually run this entire lift setup with less relays than this if it was entirely relay controlled. So that doesn't make sense. They put in more relays for it to be an electronic controlled lift. It's like they hadn't quite got to grips with it at that point. And this really was the early days of electronics, and some of the chips here actually have the bit where you take it off and expose it to UV light to erase the chip. Like, that is old stuff here. It is a very interesting logic. Looks like that would be where you would be with your jumper wire in that panel. Neons. Piccolo. There are so many relays here. This seems for a single call, well, for a one call at a time lift. That there's easily enough relays to run your whole lift. So your main contactors, that's enough relays really to do a single call at a time system. Plus, if those there are your floor relays, then what's the chip for? It's already got enough without needing a chip. What the fuck's a Stannah Piccolo? Got a chip on that side and little relays on that side. There's a pick. There's a pick. Oh, Piccolo then. What? No, it's not called Piccolo because it uses a pick chip. No, it's actually called Piccolo because it uses a pick processor. That can't be. It can't be. A card from 1991. Cold oil? That's weird. Cold oil, bloody freezing. Mystery is, I've seen lifts with less relays than this lift that do the exact same function. So a one call at a time system, it doesn't even have automatic doors. The inner door can just be wired into the unlatching circuit because it doesn't have any logic function of its own. And I've seen lifts that do a simple lift with less relays than what this lift has. But for some reason, in addition to this lift's relays, it also has a processing chip, which seems bizarre and thoroughly odd to me. Yeah, it has a microprocessor alongside the logic.